My name is Jess Franklin, and I am a postdoc with ICRAG, and I'm also a member of the EDIG committee. So I'm going to share with you the results of the survey that Aileen mentioned. And the purpose of the survey was really to help design and inform the structure and the content of this conference. So I'll be giving a summarized overview of the preliminary survey results regarding the top issues which emerged from the data. And initially, I'll bring you through the demographics of the survey respondents, and then I'll move on to the experiences and main themes that have come out of the data. In the interest of time, we've grouped together some categories with limited responses or those categories that had too many to list in this presentation. But as Aileen mentioned, a full review of the data will be made available over the course of next year as further analysis is ongoing. Some of the detailed analysis of the results will be shared throughout the conference to coincide with the relevant sessions and discussion topics as well. So as Aileen said, the survey had 708 responses and was answered by people from over 50 countries. So we'd love to know how many of you joining us today have completed the survey. So I'm going to direct you now to AHA Slides. Some of you might be familiar with it, but if you're not, it's very easy to use. Simply just go to ahaslides.com, either on your phone or your laptop. Instructions are going to be posted in the chat box as well if you miss out. So once you get to ahaslides.com, you'll see a box at the top of the page where you can enter a code. You can see some people are logging in already. Great. So the code for this presentation is up here at the top of the page. It's EDIG survey. Again, we'll post this in the chat box as well for anybody who's joining a bit later. So once you enter the code, you'll be able to follow along with the presentation in your internet browser as I go through it, and also take part in this poll and another poll that's going to appear at the end of the presentation. So as we can see here, there's 3 options: yes, no, or no, but I would like to. So that's great. We have some responses coming in. 65, 64. How's that gone down? Oh no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Great, we've over 60 responses. So that poll will be open if people want to keep filling it out as I go through the presentation. So moving on to the results, I'll start with the demographics of the respondents. It's important to keep in mind what groups responded to the survey and in what proportions when we're discussing the EDI data later. It's also really important for us to know what groups we've reached and which groups we need to reach with any future surveys. So we've learned a lot from the first survey, and we plan on launching an expanded survey in the future. So as you can see here, the majority of respondents to the survey were aged between 18 and 45 years old. Smallest age group was the over 60s, who accounted for only 9% of respondents. 60% of respondents identified as female, while 37% identified as male, 2% identified as non-binary, and less than 1% identified as agender. Almost 75% of respondents identified as heterosexual. Those who identified as bisexual accounted for 11% of respondents. 4% identified as asexual, 3% as lesbian, 2% as gay, and 2% as pansexual. For the data on ethnic background, we've taken here into account respondents of mixed ethnicities who stated what their backgrounds were. So as a result, the N number for this question is 818. So 82% of respondents stated they were from a white background, 8% responded that they were from a mixed or multiple ethnicities background, 7% were from a Black background, and almost 7% were from an Hispanic or Latinx background. These were the largest groups of respondents, with several other smaller groups also recorded here, as you can see on the slide. Groups with less than 1% have been grouped as other just for the purpose of this presentation, but again, the details of all the data will be made available at a later date. In terms of where the respondents were replying from, we've combined the country data just to display it as continents here, because we have over 58 countries responded. 44% of respondents were answering from Europe, 39% from North America, 7% from Africa, with replies also recorded from Oceania, Asia, and South America. Furthermore, we asked people if they were replying from their country of origin or not, as this information may provide important context to people's experiences. So we found that 43% of people who were working in Oceania were not in their country of origin. 31% of those working in Asia were not in their country of origin, and 12% of those working in Africa were not in their country of origin. We offered respondents an extensive list of occupations to choose from as their current employment, and we've amalgamated the results here into various sectors. So 59% of respondents were working in academia, 21% were working in various industry roles or private enterprise, 7% worked in governmental jobs or NGOs, and 9% were in a variety of other roles, including freelance work. So more specifically, we asked people to state which sector of geoscience they were most recently or currently working in. We've displayed the top 10 sectors here. And as you can see, 12% were working in economic geology, 10% were working in the areas of paleontology, stratigraphy, or sedimentology, 9% were working in environmental jobs, and 9% were also working in the areas of geochemistry, mineralogy, or petrology. So that was a brief representation of our demographic data. And in the next few slides, I'll share the results from the questions regarding people's experiences with various issues in geoscience. I'll cover the broad results from these questions, and more detailed data from the experiences of various demographic groups will be shared throughout session 2 and 3 to correspond with the relevant talks and discussion points. So as you can see here, 58% of respondents stated that there are issues with prejudice in their workplace. 73% agreed that there were issues with unconscious bias in their workplace, while 58% of respondents agreed that there were issues with inequity, exclusion, and discrimination in their workplace. We can clearly see from these results that there are significant issues that need to be addressed within geoscience. When it comes to incidents that people witness or experience, a very significant 86% of respondents stated that they had witnessed incidents of prejudice, inequity, conscious and unconscious bias, exclusion, or other forms of discrimination at some stage within their workplace or place of study, with 28% responding that they had frequently witnessed incidents. 72% of respondents answered that they had experienced discrimination of some form, and 19% stated they frequently experienced incidents of some form. I think we can all agree, while these results might not be surprising to all of us, they're still quite shocking figures, and they clearly show a need for discussion and action and change. Next, we ask people to select the types of incidents they've experienced most frequently. 30% of the respondents who replied that they had experienced issues experienced gender-based issues. 18% of respondents who replied that they had experienced issues experienced sexual harassment of some form. 15% experienced discrimination based on their professional or job status, while 10% have experienced racism. 8% had experienced ableism or discrimination based on a disability, including mental health issues. So again, it's really important to note that these issues will affect various groups of people in very different proportions. And so this is going to be looked at in much greater detail in light of the demographic data for the survey. So next, we offered people the opportunity to share details of their experiences, which allowed us to gain further insight to the nature, the frequency, and the extent of the different issues which people had experienced. And data from these open questions has been used to inform the direction of the conference as well, both in terms of the topics covered by the speakers and also the discussion topics that we hope to cover in the panel sessions. So finally, I just want to finish by sharing with you the data we collected about people's awareness of and perceptions of EDI initiatives in their places of work or study. 76% of respondents replied that yes, there were EDI initiatives in their workplace, but only 77% of those respondents knew what the initiatives actually were. When asked about the effectiveness of these initiatives, only 40% of the respondents who stated that there were initiatives in their workplace stated that the initiatives were actually effective. 13% said they were not effective, and 47% stated that they were unsure if they were effective or not. I think this is a really good place to launch the conference, as we can see from the data that most people are either not engaging with EDI initiatives or unsure if they're effective or not, despite the widespread reporting of lots of different issues in geoscience. So again, I want to thank everybody who filled out the survey and all of our supporting partners. The survey was highly insightful and really helped us understand what issues we need to discuss in this conference and also going forward. So if your organization would like to get involved with EDIG, as Aileen said, please get in touch with us via our email address. So I'd like to invite you to again go to AHA Slides just for the final poll. So the instructions should be posted in the chat and the link should be there again for those of you who missed it at the start. So the code is EDIG survey. And what I want you to do is just type in a word or a few words that describes what EDI means to you. So this will be really helpful, I think, in tracking people's experiences over the next few days. Hopefully we can see if people have learned, maybe if their views on EDI issues have changed. As Aileen said at the start, we really want this to be a conference of learning. So I really hope we can see that in our word cloud. So great, there's loads of different words coming in here. Respect seems to be the dominant word, which is great. Awareness, fairness, support, equality, inclusion. All of these are really positive words, which is great. Diversity, community, brilliant. Lots of different words coming in there. That's great. We're going to save the results of this poll and they should be made available afterwards. And again, we're going to repeat a similar poll at the end of the conference tomorrow. So thanks everyone for taking part in